Good evening and welcome to the February 2nd, 2021 meeting of the Carson City Parks and Recreation Commission. How is everybody tonight? Good. Let's see our agenda. All right, call to order. Madam Secretary, will you call roll, please?
Chairperson Kiever.
Here.
Vice Chair Meyer.
Here.
Commissioner Schuett. Here. Commissioner Whitefield.
Here.
Commissioner Caldwell.
Here.
Commissioner Wilkie McCulloch. Commissioner Cartwright. Here. A quorum is present.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Item 3, public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 4 for possible action, approval of minutes from the Joint Parks and Recreation Commission and Open Space Advisory Committee meeting of December 1st, 2020. Has everybody had an opportunity to read the minutes and review them? Okay, do we have any corrections or changes?
I have one.
All right. Absolutely.
Navigation. My name is spelled wrong. 1658, first line, Myers opposed to Meyer. So thank you.
Okay, we'll make that correction. Any other corrections or changes? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
I move that we approve the minutes as corrected.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second
I'll
that.
second it.
Okay,
Or Dave will, I don't care.
we have 2 seconds, so we're good. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All
Aye.
those against? The motion carries. The minutes stand as corrected. Now we're going to move on to the fun one. For discussion only, we are going to present Mayor Lori Bagwell with a small token of our appreciation for all her years of service, her dedicated hard work, and just being the person she is who brought so much to the commission meetings. And I believe Jen has something special for you, Madam Mayor. Jen?
Thank you, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just wanted to take a moment and thank the mayor for just all your hard work and dedication and putting up with us all these years. Your guidance has just been so appreciated, and you always hear when we are talking about our needs and our budget. And anytime there's an opportunity and you find some opportunity to make something work within the budget, you try to help us out, and we just can't thank you enough. And I did ask you what your favorite park was. So you said it was Riverview Park, which one of my favorites as well. And, we have our resident photographer, Dan Arp, who's an amazing talent. And we have a picture on canvas of Riverview Park for you, just a little token of our appreciation for all your hard work. So thank you.
So just a brief moment, I want to thank staff and this entire board in the process of Parks and Rec. It was really near and dear to my heart and really hard for me to give up. But when I became mayor, I thought, uh-oh, there's a little more paperwork and a little more processes involved. So I'm positive Lisa Schutte will follow behind me with strength. I look forward to still being a strong advocate for the Parks and Rec Open Space Department. I think it's one of the greatest things that Carson City ever did with Question 18. And I just look forward to seeing what all of you can come up with to help move us forward. I think certainly I am a budget person that does look for every penny that can be used as a match or an opportunity for something to come up. Very proud that we're now trying to improve our playgrounds. I find that personally satisfying that we're trying to put the money in every year to do the playgrounds. And so I just know that our trail systems and everything else are in wonderful shape because we have members that serve on these types of committees with commitment. So I look forward to seeing what you guys bring forward to me so I can continue to help. And Riverview is absolutely my favorite, and I've got to figure out where I can put the picture that I can give it good honor.
Yeah, take a picture of your picture. Yes. We're heading down.
Yeah, you guys have plexiglass in here, so you don't have to wear masks. But if you leave the plexiglass, you have to put them on.
Thank you.
You want me to-
Absolutely, you're part of this family.
Hi, Dave.
Oh, way to get out of
Got
it,
gray
Jen.
hair you put up. there looks really good. I know, huh? Yes, looks like very distinguished day.
I'll take, actually, Daniel, would you take that picture?
Yeah.
Do you mind?
Of course not.
Cool, thank you.
Of course.
Danielle's gonna take this.
How close do we get without hitting?
I'm like, this is unusual for me to be surrounded by people in my house.
Right, so one. Right. Smile with your eyes.
So smiling eyes.
Okay. I got more than a few. I got more.
Thank you so much for appreciate
Of course.
I truly look
Just want to
forward
make sure I got a good shot.
what you guys can come up with. Push it a little further than I could. Just
Lori, take this
to the next level.
Do you want the box?
Careful there, you guys. This has a weird ride.
Yeah, that's real painful.
It does.
I know, I already.
Don't
But I
worry.
trip on nothing, so, you know. We've, managed to,
We haven't rolled down.
I know, right? Such a bummer.
I thought maybe they would.
Perfect.
That's what we look like.
Love, huh?
Sorry.
I know, right? You're so smart.
Shooty out of that spelling is beyond me, so it's just all good.
Okay, I'll remember them, right?
Okay.
Thank you.
If you get mad at me, if you just gonna do, if it
Dan, is your presentation queued up?
I used to tell my students that.
There we go. Discussion and possible action regarding the election of a chair and a vice chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission for the 2021 calendar year. And I will entertain motions on both of this for anybody but me. So it's time for somebody else to step up and work with Jen and her staff and to lead the commission through 2021. I'll entertain a motion. Anybody? Dave?
Okay. I would move to nominate Kurt Meyer for chair. And I don't have a nomination for vice chair.
Well, we'll do it one at a time. While we do this one, maybe you can think of somebody for vice chair. How's that?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Meyer has been nominated for chair for 2021. Do we have any?
Second that.
You'll second that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion
Aye.
carries. So let's move on to vice chair, and then you'll take over. Does that work for you, Kurt? Okay, so let's nominate a vice chair. Anybody? Who would like to be vice
I
chair?
nominate Dave Whitfield.
No,
No, you don't want to be? Okay. What
No,
about Commissioner
you.
Cartwright?
Never mind.
Leah, would you serve as vice chair?
I would be happy to try it again. I just had a baby, so I am a
congratulations.
little bit busier than I anticipated, but I would be happy to attempt the vice chairmanship once again.
In that case, I would nominate Commissioner Cartwright as our vice chair for 2021. Do I hear a second?
Kurt Meyer will
I'll
second that.
second.
Okay.
Stepping all over each other.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All
Aye.
right, we have new leadership. Kurt, it's all up to you now.
Wow. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you both for agreeing to do this.
Once you get the mic on, you can't get it off.
Well, I would just like to say thank you very much, Leanne, for your leadership for the last few years that I've been here, and even prior to that. So, and your dedication to the Parks and Recreation, and I'll use you as a resource for sure.
Absolutely.
I might step on something tonight, and you feel free to correct me.
Okay.
Especially with all these computer screens in front of me. So, thank you very much.
You could do it, agreeing to do this.
So, right now, it looks like for discussion only, we're going to, wait a minute here. So we're here. So Dan Arp is going to give us a presentation. Dan, are you ready for that? Okay, thank you.
This is a presenting computer, isn't it? I don't know if that one hooks up to the. Have a PowerPoint. All right. So for the record, Dan Arp, Recreation Superintendent. We'll keep this quick. We know we have a lot to cover tonight, and I still need to watch Groundhog's Day with my wife when I get home. So. The movie with Bill Murray. Anyway, so just real quick, with the outdoor program, it's kind of a new concept for us, but basically I've always been passionate about the outdoors, and so we've done a couple outdoor activities in the past, and so this is kind of an outline of some of the things that we've done, but kind of started with a mountain bike camp, which was really popular. We just did a trial with, 1 week camp, 20 kids, had a waiting list our first year. So then we expanded that to 3 weeks in the second summer. And then we did a ski program, which we had done in the past, but had been on hiatus for a little while and kind of brought that back. Had to change things up a little bit to different locations, but that's also been really popular. And then we did a survey in, I think 2018 or 2019, where we did a outdoor needs assessment survey to send out to the community and said if we were to do more outdoor programming, what kind of things would people want to see? And without going into details of what the results were, we based a lot of our decisions off of the results of that, what the community was wanting to see from that. And we had 268 respondents from that survey. But definitely, we're just seeing a lot of support for outdoor programming, and anything that we do that relates to the outdoor activities is always generally full, or we have a waiting list for it. So with that in mind, when COVID started in the spring of 2020, and we pretty much canceled all of our programming that we normally do, we thought, well, outdoors is something we could focus on because it's safer outside, we can spread out, we could do small groups. And so I reached out to the CEO of Carson Tahoe Health and kind of proposed this idea of developing an outdoor program, a more comprehensive outdoor program than what we had done in the past. And he liked the idea of it and supporting outdoors because there's so many studies that talk. I mean, we know that there's a lot of health benefits to outdoor recreation physically. But there's also a lot of mental health benefits of outdoor recreation as well. So because of those two things, Carson Tahoe was fully supportive of the idea, and they gave us $17,000 to acquire outdoor equipment. Specifically, they outlined that they wanted us to get kayaks, snowshoeing equipment, and backpacking equipment were the things that $17,000 is supposed to cover. So since then, we've been working on acquiring that equipment. It's been a little tricky getting that because of a lot of shortages across the country in certain outdoor equipment. We just got our kayaks a couple weeks ago, which have been in back order for like 6 months. But we're finally getting all the gear. But just, we like photos here. So here's a couple of pictures of our mountain bike camps that we've done. We usually have about 20 kids in those at a time. And we offer 3 a summer. And that's the high school mountain bike team. They're the volunteer and they run that for us. So they've been really great to do that. Just some pictures from our ski and snowboard program up at Boreal. We also offer photography classes where we're going to do astrophotography or fall photography, but all landscape photography, get outside. And those have been well received. So in COVID times, this was the first one for us, but we did an archery camp this spring in June. And that one, we only were allowed 15 kids in there because of COVID. We had 12 on the waiting list that we unfortunately couldn't get in. But parents are looking for this kind of stuff, especially right now when there's not a lot else going on. And then officially, we finally were able to start with the official outdoor program with partnership with the hospital with our snowshoe trips that we started just last month. And so are doing 8 of those this winter, kind of as a trial to get things going. We are mostly running it through volunteers. So we have a couple staff that are trained to run snowshoe trips, but then we also had a bunch of volunteers that we went through wilderness first aid training with. And we actually almost had 50 volunteers reach out to us, which is outstanding. We have about 15 of those that are currently trained that went through our process, background checked, everything like that. And we've been working closely with the Forest Service and state parks to gain access to their lands. We're not considered commercial, which is helpful. So we're able to do a lot more things that way, but go to different places because there's just not that many trails. We have a lot of great trails in Carson City, but a lot of things that we want to do, we need to be able to go beyond kind of our borders. And so far, of the 4 first snowshoeing trips that we have done, they are completely full. Most of those have waiting lists. And then the ones that do have some room are in March. So I think people are waiting to see what the weather will be like. And even those only have about 1 or 2 spots left. So the snowshoeing trips have been very successful. We're having a lot of fun doing those. Our best pictures, we just did Skunk Harbor on Saturday, which was hard with 4 feet of fresh snow that nobody had used yet. But we got to break that trail in, which was fun, and we all made it back. And I haven't finally been able to walk today after the first time in 3 days. So these are the kayaks that we purchased. We're pretty excited about them. So just kind of for the short term, what we're trying to do this year and into next is just continue with the mountain bike camps, the ski program. We want to bring that back because we weren't able to do that this last year. We want to be able to offer kayaking trips this summer. Introduction to backpacking, which just be a one-night thing just to get people out, learn how to pack their bags, where to go. A couple of youth adventure camps focusing on kayaking and hiking. We've talked about an adventure triathlon. That's still kind of up in the air, but looking at doing something down along the river where they kayak and then trail run and bike some of the new trails that we just put in a couple months ago that connect everything together. And then we'd also, while we're not using equipment, we want to try and get this equipment available for the public to be able to rent. The whole idea of having it is that people can use it. So for very affordable prices, we can check that out to people so they can take it away for the weekend and go kayaking somewhere. Because you just can't do that else in town. There's nowhere to rent bikes or kayaks or snowshoes. Well, there's a couple places to get snowshoes, but pretty much everything else, there's nowhere else to do it in town. So we want to make that available to the public, but we're still working that out. And then on the long term, we're just hoping to be able to develop relationships with both WNC and the school district, with potentially working with more education and getting kids out there and focusing on youth. This year, we haven't been able to do youth-specific stuff because we can't transport, which is difficult. We can't exactly ask parents to drive up somewhere to drop their kids off and hang out in the car for 3 hours. When we go do something with their kids, we might as well, if they're going to be there, we might as well just have the whole family involved. So, but we do hope to kind of focus on women's groups specifically, seniors specifically, youth groups specifically, and then just families and just kind of all around. But that is the outdoor program in a nutshell. So hopefully you'll see a lot more of that stuff coming out and your way. Any questions?
I have a question. This is Dave. Where do you keep the equipment, and is the checkout procedure? Is it online or on the phone, or how do you do that?
So the equipment's kind of stored in a variety of places right now as we're working on getting a storage unit that's been temporarily approved for the behind the Mac that we're going to store everything. But for right now, it's kind of in a few places until we get that in place. As far as renting it, we don't have that set up yet, but the plan is to have that available at the Mac. Since we already have staff at the front desk available, we want to have all the gear there so that way if you want to check something out, we have the backup drive behind the building for loading. So if felt like that was the best place to do it.
Thank you.
Chairman Keever?
Okay, there we go. This is kind of coincidence. I've had parents ask me over the last couple of weeks about the junior ski program and if we're going to have it. So to know we're going to try and bring it back next year is a good thing because there is an interest out there in the community. And if we do bring it back, there will be the appropriate media, shall we say?
Yeah,
public
we
information.
have every intention of bringing that back. Broke my heart this year. I had probably 20 to 30 parents calling me, asking when they could register, and just to have to turn them away because we just couldn't do busing or anything this year.
Exactly. So hopefully situational change and we can do it next year.
Hope so.
Hope so. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
To tail on with that, as far as the ski program, do you think things may improve throughout the season, that there could be a shortened version of that? Or is it mostly just because of that transportation is the issue?
I was hopeful. But there's just so many variables, so many things in place that make it difficult. We're on a pause until February 15th, so we weren't really even considering, at least until then, to see what the next phase is, right? And by then, it's Boreal's not super high up, so like doesn't have the best snow to begin with. So I don't know. It'll be difficult, I think, to throw something together, even on a short scale.
That question was asked optimistically, so.
I just am so impressed by this, and thank you for your hard work, because I know it's to find partners and to coordinate outings and get the resources together. There's a lot of work behind the scenes, so kudos. And one thing I was thinking about with if parents were to drive kiddos up, maybe with one of these 50 volunteers to help out with snowshoeing, maybe have a parent snowshoe trip while the kiddos are having a rec trip with staff. So that might be fun, but great job.
Thank you, and we'll look into that suggestion.
Any more comments for Dan? Okay, thank you very much, Dan. So the next item is Jennifer Budge, and this is for this is discussion only, removal of unauthorized memorials located on Carson City parks and establishing procedures for the department and as far as the policy. Jennifer, are you ready?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm getting there.
You're doing good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. This is a continuing discussion. As you'll remember, we had a very long discussion previously about the memorials policy. This is still in a very rough draft form. We did bring it to the Open Space Advisory Committee as well. The draft policy in your packet incorporates all the comments that you made and all the comments from the Open Space Advisory Committee. Please know that we're still working on it. We have some additional research to do about the scattering ashes issue and some other items that require some really in-depth discovery before we kind of move forward. We plan on bringing this to the joint Parks and Recreation and Open Space meeting in June. So tonight, I really would like to focus on unauthorized memorials in our park system. Currently, we have 3 that we know of. There's probably more, but you have photos of these 3 in your packet, so you can kind of get your head wrapped around what we're dealing with here. Obviously, this is a very sensitive issue. It's emotional for people. We want to handle things in a sensitive way and be respectful of whatever thought they had in mind to create those memorials about their loved one. But a lot of times they are safety issues. We did not provide, the right permissions for them to conduct those. We don't want people burying pets, for example, in areas that are not authorized. The city does have a pet cemetery. There are health codes, there's laws about that. We also have to be very careful about religious items on government property. And if there's questions specifically about that, Mahela is on the line to assist with, but I'll read a portion of an email that she sent me. Under the Establishment Clause, all government, including local, may not promote or affiliate itself with any religious doctrine or organization. So if we allow for that to happen on our land, we're in violation of that. I'm not sure what the legal ramifications of that are, but it's just something that we can't permit. So I did want to talk about what procedures do you think we could put in place for discussion at that joint meeting? If it's something you want to think on for a while and then bring that back to the June meeting, that's fine as well. But we handle homeless camps in one fashion. We try to be sensitive with that issue as well. But we do on-site post that they need to, relocate and remove those items within a certain time frame. It's typically 48 hours. If they need assistance, we do provide assistance to them. And then if they don't relocate that, we hold their items for 30 days and give them an address where they can come pick them up. I think something like this is a little bit more sensitive, where perhaps we need at least a 30-day notice. But it's really difficult because we don't always know who put it up. Should we put something out? There's a, unauthorized memorial maybe on the hill behind Lone Mountain Cemetery, for example. If you know anything about this, please, contact the Parks Department so we can work with you. There's one example in your packet where we've actually been able to find the obituary for that individual. I think we could get in touch with that family and work with them, to get those items removed and try to be as sensitive as possible. But there's going to be a lot of times where we're not going to be able to get a hold of people. So we need to be able to put, a very fair and sensitive process in place. And I wanted to get, all of your feedback. And we'll also be bringing this to the Open Space Advisory Committee meeting this month as well to get their feedback, compile all of that for our joint meeting in June.
Does anybody have any questions for Director Budge? Comments on this issue?
This is Janice Caldwell.
Go ahead, Janice.
Is it possible to put aside some section of our property for these kind of memorials so that they could all be in one place?
Well, we do have the Lone Mountain Cemetery. And then in the policy, we do talk about where, and we've talked about that with both boards and commissions, and nothing's final yet, but where these might be appropriate. I think we want to be careful. We don't want every park to look like a cemetery, and we don't also want a lot of memorials where there, obviously, things do happen. Vandalism occurs. If you have them near turf, we don't want them hit with mowers. We don't want to create obstacles where it's not necessary. So I think we want to try to encourage people to have those memorials, like at the cemetery, for example, and encourage memorial tree groves and things like that, benches, with a nice plaque, and try to kind of be like that. But these unique ones that are out, in our parklands, it's just not really the right place. And how do we want to deal with removing those in a sensitive manner?
Yeah.
Jan, I have a question. I noticed at the very end of the document, there is a place for estimated cost and paid cost. Are we going to be charging people to put these memorials out there? Or is that just going to be the cost of processing the paperwork and making sure everything's in compliance with our regulations?
Well, it really depends on what someone proposes. Let's say someone wants to put in a bench at one of our parks, and it's one of the approved locations where we'll accept that to happen. The donor, we'll call them, will be responsible entirely for the cost of the bench. If it's something special that requires a third-party contractor to install, say we need a concrete pad underneath, or depending on the location, they would 100% be responsible for that cost. They can either pay us and we can purchase that item and coordinate that, or they could pay a third party and we might not collect any money. But we would approve, that project and that scope of work at the specific location. So that's where money might change hands. But we definitely want them to sign something saying that, if it's vandalized or stolen, the city's not responsible for replacement of that. We would definitely contact the family and work with getting it replaced, but the city just can't be burdened with that continual cost. And it does happen. While it's not frequent, it does happen, and we just can't take on that expense.
I have a question. This is Commissioner Cartwright.
Go ahead, Leah.
Thank you. Are we required to follow any notice laws related to this? Like, for example, courts have to, if you're taking somebody to court, you have to post it in the newspaper 30 days in advance. Are we required to follow anything like that, or that's what we're trying to determine tonight?
Thank you. I think that's a great question. I think Mihaela may want to jump in. I think she did some research on this and we couldn't find any requirements for noticing. So we wanted to talk about what we thought was reasonable to notice on site and what other measures would we want to take with this issue. Do we want to post things? Do we want to put something vague out in maybe newspapers? I just want to be sensitive because I don't want to draw people to that location, create additional heartache for that family. Maybe they just didn't know. They thought it was, if it was adjacent to private land, they didn't check the boundaries. I just want to be careful. I don't want to post stuff all over social media and then create, unwanted concerns. So I don't believe there's a noticing requirement. I don't know if Mihaela, you want to jump in?
Thank you for the question. Mihaela Niagos, Deputy District Attorney for the record. And that is correct. I couldn't find any legal authority that is in place in regards to these unauthorized memorials on public land. With that being said, this is something that we should consider. And as Jen has mentioned, when we decide the process, we should take into account what we're trying to accomplish here. And she provided the example of the homeless that they usually get a 3-day notice of attack, advising them to move from the place that they are at, or they're not authorized to remain. And in situations like this, we were considering maybe giving them a 30-day notice because it may take them a while to find out that they were put in notice that they should remove the memorials. Something else that we thought that would be important to consider is how long would we want to store those items for them if they're not removed within the 30 days. Should we give them an opportunity to remove them later on from a location that we have? So these are just policy considerations that we should take and include in the policy that Jen is working on and is going to go to the Board of Supervisors eventually.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
This button's giving me problems. So thank you for that explanation. Does anybody else have any
There's a little bit
questions?
of a delay.
This is Commissioner Wilkie. It's not really a question, maybe more of a suggestion that we come up with maybe almost like a third vendor list of acceptable memorials benches, because you don't want 30 different kinds of benches someplace. And the requirement for them to be, like you said, you might have to have a concrete pad or whatever, but maybe we need, after we do this, maybe a regulation or something that you could steer people to the right places to get things so that there's some consistency in all of them.
Thank you. That's a great question. We do have some park standards And we'd look at the location and work with that donor to make sure that the item identified and purchased meets our standards. So it wouldn't be like a residential type bench that wouldn't handle up in a commercial setting. So we would work with that. We have to be careful. We can't provide vendors and suggest people use certain vendors, but we can definitely identify certain products that would meet the minimum requirement. And we would work based on every location, because you may not want the one same bench throughout the entire park system. It might not work. So we will definitely work with donors on that. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments for Jennifer?
I do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is really just, as you say, that the whole idea of being sensitive, it is such a difficult situation. So perhaps some considerations to offer ideas of ways to memorial loved ones, to brainstorm with someone so that they feel, even though there's some fairly strict restrictions, and that'll be my next point, that their wish or hope to memorialize this person or loved one or critter, that they're being heard and that there are some creative ways to do that. Perhaps for sensitive ways to explain reasons, or where I'm going with this is perhaps a public service announcement or a brochure, really talking about the whys behind the decisions. Like when I reached out to you reading the packet and wondering about plaques by trees. And because it seems like such a wonderful thing to do, to be able to plant a tree and then you have this little plaque. And yet that creates its own potential problem. People trip, or it's vandalized or damaged, or it damages equipment. So a brochure to really explain why and offer other suggestions. And maybe some of these people might appreciate that because they hadn't thought of something, or they didn't know something was available.
I think that's a great idea. And once we get this all dialed in between both boards and get approval from the Board of Supervisors, I think a brochure is a great idea. And then we could put something on our website as well and maybe dedicate a page, to that.
Yes, you can, Ms. Keever. Commissioner Keever. Yeah, mine.
Jim, I know NDOT has the same problem on the roadways with these impromptu memorials. Have you touched base with anybody over in that agency to see how they solve the problem or how they work the issue?
That's a wonderful question. I did reach out to our transportation manager, Lucia Maloney, and had her contact NDOT to see what their policy was regarding roadside memorials. And they don't actually have a policy in place right now because it's such an emotional thing. They're dealing almost always with deaths, obviously in the right-of-way. And it's, they had at some point memorials you could purchase from them to put up that they felt were acceptable. That didn't go all that well. They have tried to remove some and put timeframes on them, and they just are kind of at a standstill because it's just such an emotional issue. So they don't currently have a policy, but I did get an email from Lucia outlining kind of their practice in rights of way. And it's a discussion that we'll probably have also with RTC to see if they have any desire to include like a right-of-way policy within ours. So we have one city policy regarding memorials. I'm not sure if we'll get there. I think on the roadway and right-of-way is another whole issue.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments about this? Okay, seeing none, I had a question. You said we're currently removing them and storing them if they don't have
Homeless
time?
camps, we haven't removed any memorials.
We haven't removed
So
any
the
more.
3 in your packet are still out there,
Okay,
which is exactly why we need your direction. and your comments, because what we'd like to do is bring this to open space. They meet on the 22nd, get their feedback. Two of the memorials are on open space lands and one is in a park. And we love some guidance that we can put in that policy in June and then take to the board so we have one that's approved. But is it 30 days? And then what else is involved? Do we store it for another 30 days? You know, what is your suggestion? So that's really the feedback that we need from you tonight. And it wouldn't be final. We'll be discussing this again, but it would be good to get the two boards on the same page with how we move forward with that.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on, this is also something that Director Budge is going to go over. Discussion and possible action. This is number 9, discussion and possible action recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for the fiscal year 21-22 capital improvement program budget, request and funding priorities for the Park and Recreation and Open Space Department. You ready to go, Jen?
Ready.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just want to apologize for the large packet. I know it's a lot of information to digest, and I really appreciate your patience with that. So in the past, our CIP plan and our capital improvement plan has been only a couple pages. It's been really small. We've worked really hard with the help of Public Works, and we had a third-party consultant that came in and did a facility assessment report on most city buildings, which include a lot of our park buildings. And that information can be just overwhelming. I sent you a sample in your packet of just one report that was 50 pages. So if you think about a report like that on every park building, it's easy to get overwhelmed. So I know it's a lot of information. I just wanted to provide you with a sample so you knew what we were looking at. I do want to thank Dave Navarro. He has been amazing. Him and Nick Wentworth took all of those facility reports, extrapolated all the information, and put it into the spreadsheets that you have in front of you. So that way you didn't have to wade through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of facility reports. So they took that information of all the top priorities from those facility reports and put those in the spreadsheets that you have in your packet. So the budget process is right now. We have to submit our capital improvement program requests by February 8th. And then supplemental requests or any changes to our operating budget will be after that. And we'll discuss the operating budget at our next meeting. So for those of you who are new, any capital requests from the city are anything $5,000 and over. We can request one-time items under $5,000, and those are the minor requests. So when you see those different terms, you'll know what the difference is. So minor requests are less than $5,000. Anything over that is just a standard capital improvement program request. So these are all one-time requests for the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department. If you look at the first sheet that I provided with you, attachment A, it's the one with all the colors. I wanted to give you an overview of what was approved last year. And the priorities that the staff have been working on that are in your packet, we took a 3-year average of what was approved by the city. So we had a good idea of how much money was typically available for the department. We do have to sort of play well in the sandbox. Every other department is begging for money like the rest of us. But we wanted to be really fair with our requests and try to be consistent with sort of the average of what we've gotten. A lot of the projects, if not all, are in progress on that attachment A. We got sort of a later start this year due to COVID. Typically, we would have known July 1st that these projects were all approved, but we didn't know until the end of September. So we got a little bit of a later start, but most of these projects are in progress or, moving forward, which is great. So we have a lot going on. Our staff is super busy trying to acquire these items and get design and get all these projects moving. Before I move on, is there any questions on attachment A and what's been funded for this current fiscal year already? No questions? Okay, so I will move on. You've seen the facility assessment report, which is ginormous, as we discussed. And then also in your packet are a few different Excel spreadsheets. So you have the one that I mentioned earlier that Dave and Nick worked on and took that information from the facility assessment reports and extrapolated all that information. So by law, every department has to prepare a 5-year capital improvement plan. So this is the department's 5-year plan. If you look at the totals at the bottom, it's staggering, the amount of money that we need. It's millions of dollars, and we obviously don't have that. So where do we start? I mean, I think the grand total for FY22, if we were going to fund everything from those facility reports, was $7.8 million. And that's only the facilities. It doesn't talk about rolling stock. It doesn't talk about other park needs like irrigation, playgrounds, other park amenities. So we have some pretty significant needs. We have a very aging park system, and we've really tried at least the last 4 years to start reinvesting in that park system. And that's where you get these reports. So while we have a lot and it's sort of daunting, I think we have a lot more information and we can start really making data-driven decisions as we make the budget move forward. So if you look at the next spreadsheet, you'll see parks equipment, fleet, rolling stock. And I do want you to know I did bring reinforcements. Dave Navarro, our park superintendent, is here, and Dan Arp, our recreation superintendent, and they helped, and their staff helped put all these reports together. So if there's specific questions about equipment or items or why is that one a priority over another, I think we have the right people in the room to hopefully get the answers that you need. So the next item, the parks equipment, fleet, rolling stock, these are our mowers, Kubotas for snow plows, UTVs, hedge trimmers, string trimmers, those other pieces of equipment that don't quite show up in that facility report. Then the next report is our fleet. And we work really well with the fleet division of the Public Works Department. And this is a capital plan, a 5-year plan for replacing our vehicles. So we've been great. We used to have, when I got here, it was the oldest fleet in the entire city. And we've really started to tackle that. So we've been replacing vehicles at a pretty great amount every year. After we order or we get it approved in the budget, it typically takes 18 months to 2 years to actually get that vehicle in the fleet and actually working, because it takes time to outfit it, order it. They have to be ordered in bulk. It doesn't just, we don't just go down to Michael Hole and, pick up our truck. We wish it was that easy, but it's a little bit more complicated. So there is a delay between when the budget is authorized and we actually get that vehicle on the road. And you'll see we have a lot of trucks that are already on order. We're just waiting for them to hit the fleet and replace those older vehicles. But we're really excited about the progress that we've made with that. And then the last attachment, which is probably going to be the meat of our discussion today, and probably the easiest for you to absorb, is attachment F. And these are the capital improvement program department priorities that the staff have compiled, given all of this information, and we've put them in a priority order for your consideration tonight, in order based on our needs. So the staff, we go from the bottom up with these requests. It's not just the managers coming up with what they think the needs are. We ask all of our staff to participate, to identify the needs. We provide all of these documents to them, and then we kind of compare and contrast and see what's the greatest needs for the department. I do want to kind of walk you through each of these categories so you're aware of what we can spend money on, because some of these pots of money are very restrictive. We can't spend, some funds on certain items. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of the pots of money that are available to us for the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department, and where certain types of projects fit in. So on that first page of attachment F, those minor CIPs that we talked about. So those are, this would be a general fund request. So the general fund is not restricted, and these are items under $5,000. These were all the priorities. We had much more priorities than this, and we did pare them down. Typically, about $50,000 or less has been our success rate, if you will, for those minor CIPs in the from general fund. So things like the pool flag stanchions at the pool is a safety item. If you're not a swimmer, when you do backstroke, there's flags that warn you that you're going to hit the wall. You're getting close. It's a major safety issue. We want to, try to prevent head injuries, obviously, at the pool. But they're required. So when we have big swim meets, it's an NIAA requirement. If you have a high school swim meet or a college swim meet or anything of any standard, you have to have those flags in. So these are some items that are safety issue related. And I tried to, I'm not sure if we gave you what those mean, but the ones with the stars are safety items or OSHA compliance items. And if there's 2 stars, they're identified in the facility assessment reports. So things like fencing, we need a saw cutter, some smaller tools and equipment for park maintenance. The Ponderosa room still is in need of a television, so we can have meetings and things like that as backup. We've put one in the Bonanza room already, and we're just trying to upgrade this facility as we can. The CIP general fund requests, so those are items over $5,000. And you'll see 2 items for Eagle Valley Golf Course. We already brought the golf course agreement to you a few times. We get an annual update from the golf course contractor, Duncan Golf Management. In the agreement, after year 3, if we're going to consider renewal of that 5-year agreement, Duncan needs to provide 10% of their net operating income toward capital improvements at the golf course. And then the city is to match that capital investment. So this year, after 3 years, we have an amount for you. 10% of their net operating income is that $52,244 that's shown there. Our match would need to be the same or higher. And then we would have the opportunity to renew the agreement as well. So we've met with Duncan. We've talked about renegotiating the contract. We're all agreement with terms, which is great. We have a great relationship with them. And these projects are the top priorities for them and for us. So the greatest things we've heard from residents are the cart paths are in terrible condition and the bunkers are awful. They pool water, they don't drain. They're hard as a rock in some areas. So those are the 2 top priorities we've heard from residents about the golf course.
Jan, I had a question on that. Why did we put the 52 just on the bunkers and not possibly cut it in half and look as if we're matching on the cart paths and the bunkers?
There really is that match. It's just implied sort of under the cart path. So we're proposing actually contributing more than the 52,000.
The Duncan is?
No, the city. So we're requesting some additional funds in addition to the $52,000 that we would match to be able to do those items. Dave worked with Duncan to put together a plan, and he put together, I think it's like a 5-year or so plan, and the goal would be to put in $75,000 a year toward the cart paths until we have those really handled. And then Duncan put together a plan, and I believe it's $60,000 a year investing in the bunkers. So we wouldn't do them all at once, but we would do, a few at a time.
Got it. And
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And I can split that out in a different way. I know it's kind of hard to show.
So just a general question. As you're going along, would you like to field questions or would you like to go through these spreadsheets?
Whatever.
And then take questions? Does the commission have an opinion on that? Yeah, whatever.
I'm open to whatever. I'm happy to walk through and go back, or if we want to go
Well,
category
then
by
we'll
category.
just keep you on your course. I'm
Okay.
sorry for interrupting, and then
Don't apologize.
we'll make notes, and at the end, we'll bombard you with those notes.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
No, I'm happy to, however you want to do this. Let's see, so we've got another item that's come forward to this board numerous times we've had residents in here is about the sport courts at Centennial Park. The first ones that we're recommending removal and replacement of are courts 7 and 8, which are currently closed because they're unplayable. So we really heard from the tennis community about the need to do that. I still want to pursue a USTA, United States Tennis Association grant, and then some support from a private foundation to maybe complement this and match these funds so we can do additional courts. So we still plan on seeking additional funds, but this would be a general fund request. Also, a ride-on sweeper vac for the trails. This would be a shared expense that we're proposing with open space funding a third to help clear our trails, from debris, which would be great. It's a comment that we get all the time. It's very labor intensive. While this is an expensive piece of equipment, it would make it a lot easier for the staff. And then Field 3, I was on the YSA meeting the other night with Kurt, and I think everybody agrees Field 3 is a big issue at Governor's Field, and an effort to try to rehabilitate that would be great. And they did vote to contribute at least, Kurt, say if I'm wrong, $25,000 toward that project.
Yes, I'm the treasurer on the YSA board, and the commitment was $25,000 towards that at a minimum. And we'll look to see after we get ideas on what it will possibly cost and so forth, if we have money in the coffers to donate even more, so.
That's wonderful, and we really appreciate, it's the Youth Sports Association and their support. So the next category is quality of life, question 18, capital request. So quality of life is a portion of sales tax that goes into a fund, and 40% goes to open space, 40% goes to capital improvements, and 20% goes toward park maintenance. So I just want to caution everyone, this is a very restrictive fund. We cannot spend quality of life funding in every park. I'll give you an example. We can't spend that fund at the golf course. We can't spend it at the cemetery. It's very restrictive. Some parks and some locations are expressly listed and right up front in that language. For example, Mills Park, almost anything at Mills Park is fair game for this fund. The rifle range is written into that. There's some community beautification, there's trails are written into that. So there are a lot of wonderful things that were envisioned in that category, but not everything is eligible for these funds. So we always get our wish list, and then we have to really scrutinize what we put in that category to make sure it's eligible. So we've made a real effort every year to replace the controllers for the irrigation system with WeatherTrack. And this is just to continue that effort, another $100,000, where I think we're in phase 3 would be now. Replaster the aquatic facility, the top pool. We're trying to replaster one pool every year. So we get, the only one we would have after this would be the outdoor pool would be next in the rotation. We've been able to do the large 50-meter pool. We're doing the therapy pool right now. The top pool would be next, and then the outdoor pool would be the following fiscal year. The community center floor cleaning equipment, it's, I think, probably as old as the floor in there. And, Eric's staff desperately needs the equipment to be able to clean not only the gymnasium floor, but all the floors throughout the community center. 72-inch mower, infield groomer, and then this is another complaint we get from the public, and something that the staff is really passionate about, is wanting to replace the restroom and improve the ADA access at the Korean War Memorial, that entrance to Riverview Park. There's crumbling concrete everywhere. It's really difficult. We get a lot of people, especially when they're at the Korean War Memorial itself. There's a lot of people in wheelchairs. It's just not great accessible use. The restroom is kind of far away from the parking lot. We kind of wanted to redo that space, and the restroom is pretty sad. So that was a big one from staff, trying to push that forward. And then another one of our mowers in our fleet. Moving on for quality of life maintenance, we try to resurface the floor at the MAC every 2 years. So this would be the year that we would resurface that. and then an aerator, and then just continuing to make improvements with our signage master plan that you all approved previously. So just trying to replace old signage with new updated signage that fits the master plan and is a little more legible than some of our older sites. Quality of life open space. These are items that we'll be discussing at the Open Space Advisory Committee. But a right-of-way mower to help clear the brush along the trails in a quicker manner, help deal with defensible space issues. And then the park ranger truck is in need of tools, and we would split that cost between open space and the general fund. And then that ride-on sweeper vac that I talked about earlier, we're recommending a third of that come from the open space fund. Then the fleet CIP fund, that all comes from general fund, so that's our vehicle replacement. Those are the order of the trucks that need to be replaced, and they're all park maintenance vehicles that are older. Then residential construction tax, that's another fund that is restrictive. So in Nevada revised statutes, it talks about how can we spend that fund, and that fund is generated from new home construction. When you pull a permit for your house, $1,000 goes into a fund to fund neighborhood park improvements. They have to be spent on new projects, can't be used for maintenance, and they have to be on parcel sizes of 25 acres or less. So for example, you couldn't spend residential construction tax at Mills Park. The parcels are larger than that. Pete Livermore Sport Complex has a bunch of small parcels, so if we were able to do a neighborhood improvement at that park that was allowed under NRS, playgrounds, ball fields, things like that on smaller parcels are acceptable. But we have to be really careful about what we spend that fund on. There's not a ton of money there. And after you spend it, you typically don't get a lot because it's totally dependent on development. So this board had already identified when you approved the park master plan for Roscoe Park, the priorities of what you would like to see developed at that park. So the next thing on your list that you guys identified was the Roscoe Park shelter. So we put that next. And then the next item is sort of up in the air. We've hemmed and hawed over our plan for playgrounds throughout the whole city. We're actually trying to reduce the number of playgrounds that we have because they're so expensive to replace. That is one that does need to be replaced, but we're kind of working on what other projects might be eligible for that. Would it be ball fields? We actually could use residential construction tax at Governor's Field because the parcel size is less than 25 acres. Maybe we contribute toward additional field work there. We might not want to decide what to do with the rest of the RCT for now and kind of table that to later and just put it in an undesignated fund, identify some projects along with you, the Youth Sports Association, and other groups, and come forward later with that. And then the facility assessment report, there's a couple items that are being funded through other sources. There were items about the rifle range, the cover, and improving those. We recently received a Department of Wildlife grant from Hunter Education Funds and Pittman Robertson Funds, and that was in your Board of Supervisors' previous actions. You'll see that. That's being funded through that grant. And then the Roscoe Park restroom and ADA access is entirely funded through a CDBG grant, Community Development Block Grant. So we're very lucky to get some of these other grant sources to address some of the needs that were identified. Well, I know that was a lot, and you probably all want to go to sleep right now, but if you have questions on this attachment F, and I'd really love your feedback if you agree with how we prioritize things, if you think things should be moved around, if there's projects that we didn't identify that you feel need to be brought forward to the board for recommendation, any feedback is welcome.
Thank you, Jennifer. So with that report, I think maybe we'll start at the top. Is there any questions about the assessment and so forth for Jennifer, as far as how the assessment came about and so forth? Okay, great. And then the next things were any questions about the CIP that we're currently in those approvals? Okay, so then we'll start with the any questions. F, on the F slides. Who's that? I did.
Commissioner Cartwright?
Oh, maybe it's, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry for the confusion with the electronic meeting. I have two questions. The first is I see the little asterisk that denotes the requests are safety or OSHA compliance items. Are we prioritizing all of the safety items, or are some of those not funded that we maybe need to consider funding? That's question number one. And I can ask my second question now or wait till after we get an answer.
Go ahead, Jen.
I don't think there's anything critical safety related that's not on your attachment F. There's definitely potential, obviously looking at that facilities report, there's things that are deteriorating. But if there's anything critical, we put them on this attachment F for you.
Okay, thank you for that. That was concerning. And then is there any hope from the federal level that we might get some additional funding for parks and outdoor activities related to the COVID pandemic, just because we know how important being outdoors and having these facilities maintained and having the outdoor spaces maintained is for mental health, especially. Are you hearing anything? I know that's kind of outside the scope of this particular budget item, but maybe we'll get some grants.
I'm really hopeful. I do know that they reauthorized Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is great. We apply for that every year. We get a lot of money that built our disc golf course, a lot of other projects, Roscoe Park Playground and others. So I do know there's been funding authorized for that, which is wonderful. I am hearing that there's going to be something coming forward with additional sort of CARES Act-ish funding for local governments. I'm not sure if there's anything specifically for Parks and Recreation, but we're definitely following all of that. And if we hear anything, we'll be sure and let you guys know.
Is that all, Commissioner Cartwright? Anybody
Yes,
else?
thank you. Appreciate it.
Anybody else have any questions for Jennifer concerning attachment?
I have a question. I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Caldwell.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my buttons here. I want to make sure that I understand. Everything in attachment A is going to go forward this year?
Attachment A was already funded. So that's
Good.
for this
Okay.
fiscal year. The new fiscal year
Okay,
starts
gotcha.
July 1st.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure, and I couldn't get in on time. And then second, on the Centennial Court 7 and 8, I heard at one point there was some kind of water problem under those courts. What's the story on that?
Thank you for that question. We did have some damage during the last floods and have been, I'll say, working with FEMA over the last couple of years on that. Those funds haven't been released or authorized for that project, so we have been unable to make the FEMA repairs. So as soon as we get authorization from them to move forward, we will do, but I think it's only for one court.
Oh, okay. Well, thank
It
you.
was court number 4.
Oh. I thought it was a problem over the whole area of the courts.
For the record, this is Dave Navarro, Park Operations, the Superintendent, Commissioner Caldwell. Yes, I mean, there was a general problem that was across most of the surfacing on the courts, on the tennis courts at Centennial. But when we did have the flooding and we walked the site with the FEMA representatives, they did specifically identify, just a few areas that they would help to address. And so they didn't do all of it, but like some areas.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any more questions from the commission? Go ahead.
Hold on just, okay, Jen, I have a question. You mentioned the playground at Black Wells Pond. My concern is if the playgrounds are in terrible condition, not just there, but anywhere, that the city might incur some sort of liability. Are we kind of taking proactive steps so that we're removed from that liability?
I think that's a great question. So there's probably, next to the swimming pool, there's probably no greater liability than the playgrounds. We have 2 staff now that are certified playground safety inspectors, and we're educating our park maintenance staff too to how to be able to identify any safety issues. We've had funding every year now, the last 4 years, to try to invest in the playgrounds and take ones that are salvageable, maybe replace some parts, update the equipment. Right now, we have 2 playgrounds under construction, John Mankins Park and Ronald D. Wilson Park. We upgraded the equipment, and then we're putting in new rubberized surfacing at those parks to help reduce liability and improve safety at those parks as well. Our park project manager worked with the other park maintenance staff to sort of develop, I would say, a very draft plan about playgrounds throughout the whole city. We want to make sure that, geographically, we have a playground available in every area, but knowing how expensive they are, it's very expensive just to do the surfacing alone, let alone replace the equipment. So we're trying to identify places where that might work better. And we can actually bring back, that might be a great future agenda item, is to talk about the playground
Let's do that.
safety program within the city, and we can educate you, what does it cost and where does it make sense, and get your feedback and the public's about, oh, you can't get rid of that playground, we have to have that one, but maybe we could not have one here. If they are deemed unsafe, we remove them if we cannot fix them. For example, at Mills Park, we used to have 2 playgrounds. You'll notice we took one out last year because it was just beyond repair. So we just took it out. I would love to replace one with a really big one here, being more of a regional park. But we want to do an updated master plan for Mills Park, so we have a more thoughtful plan moving forward. But playgrounds are really complicated topic, and they do have a lot of liability, but people want them. We also have, my sort of personal philosophy is, as you replace playgrounds, at least 50% of that structure is going to be accessible. So when we put in the Roscoe Park playground, it is accessible for, all ages and abilities. And Schultz Ranch, also an accessible playground. They're the first universally accessible playgrounds within the city. The school district doesn't have any. We're the first to put those down. So as we replace them, we want to be thoughtful as we do that. But the ADA playgrounds take up more real estate because you have ramps and they cost more money, to oversimplify it. So you have to be very careful how we do it. And it's such a great expense. But the Board of Supervisors has been really supportive in giving us additional monies every year toward that playground safety effort. I think we have $75,000 this year toward playground safety still, which is great.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions?
Commissioner,
Go ahead, Commissioner
yeah,
Whitefield.
yes, Chairman. Thank you. Jen, I'm glad to hear that the staff is studied the playground issue and is coming up with some ideas. I guess one of my questions is, knowing that they're expensive and tough to maintain and so forth, do we have any usage data on these playgrounds so that we know not just the geographical area, but, how much they're being used? And maybe that could be a part of a consideration for where we would spend money.
I don't have any usage data. I think that's a great thing to try to capture. I'm not sure how we would do that. In the 80s, the big idea with residential construction tax and working with schools was to build a playground at a school that after hours would be available to the general public. So a lot of playgrounds in the 80s and early 90s were supposed to be at schools, but then available for the general public. So the local parks department would build it with residential construction tax on the school property, and it'd be a partnership. But now with single points of entry and schools being fenced and that control, the locations where we have some of our playgrounds just don't make sense anymore either, because they're just not able to open gates and have their facilities to be so accessible. Fremont Elementary is a great example of one of those. But I think
I wondered about,
trying to capture that data, I think would be great. At some of our parks, we've been looking at wanting to have, car counters and things like that. How many people are actually going to these parks? And I think at places like Centennial and Mills and the larger parks, Pete Livermore and all the sports complexes would be easier to capture. But some of those neighborhood parks, I'm not sure how we would get that data. But we're open to any suggestions.
I wondered that myself, and I guess it's probably not as accurate as counting, but I wonder if maybe surveying the areas that they're in we might be able to create some surveys and at least get a rough idea of, because I think over time the demographics of the neighborhoods must change, and perhaps something that was seen as necessary 25 years ago may not be as desirable as it was then.
I totally agree, and a lot of our playgrounds are dated, and so as we update them too, we want to make them a little bit more modern and more interesting. So the one at Ross Gold Park, we incorporated some exercise equipment. So for those that are like CrossFit enthusiasts or want to just go out in the park, we added some alternative equipment in there that adults can use. It's totally accessible, so you can go up in your wheelchair and still utilize that equipment, just like someone that's able to stand. So it's kind of a spin on play equipment, but you may not want to go down the slide, but maybe you want to go work out at the park.
Okay. I wonder too, perhaps if we look at the overall expense of these things, if maybe not just looking at playgrounds, locations, and usage, but maybe there are other things that you really would rather spend that money on, as opposed to replacing spending $500,000 on playground equipment in one location. That doesn't get much support.
Dave, does that answer your questions?
It did. Thank you, Jen. I'll take that up at a later date, I suppose.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else on the commission that would like to talk to Jennifer or Dave or even Dan about the?
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So Jen, the already approved, the 21 budget for the irrigation controllers upgrade, 100,000 was approved. Is this next 100,000 for the Q18 capital request, the irrigation system upgrade? Is that a part of that initial plan, or is that okay, so it's something else?
Okay,
I
there,
know, they're
my
horrible.
light's green. Leslie, thank you for the question. Supervisor Schutte. Yeah, so this is when we set out to upgrade our current irrigation system, we knew we couldn't do it in all one fail like swoop. And so we mapped out kind of our areas of need of most important to kind of like least like areas or ones that maybe were not as critical. And so this is just a continuation, and we probably have another 2 years before all of our irrigation light controllers will be completely renovated to the new weather track system. Okay. I think we are like the total irrigation light controllers that we have out there. I think the the last time I had a count on it, it was around 60 or 61, and I think we've added some more like since then. But we're just a little bit over halfway on replacing those.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll go to my questions. So the first question I had was on the anchors and pole system at the swimming pool. Does that include, is there something with the anchor system, the pole system, or the flag system, or is it all the above, Dan?
These are complicated. All right. My understanding is all of the above. We're talking to Mike. Basically, what happened is that they used, I'm trying to understand Mike, what he's told me, but they used stainless steel, which rusted. And so then they concreted them in, and now they're failing again. So it's to replace those with
I think
the
it's
appropriate
currently galvanized steel and they want to replace it
galvanized.
with stainless steel.
That's right. Okay, thanks.
Got it.
But yeah, so the metal is just the wrong kind, right? And not working too well. So he wants to replace it with the appropriate stainless steel so that they are removable, not concreted in there to hold them in place because they were rusting, and et cetera.
Got it. So it's just a replacement, and is that on both directions? So there's like a total of 8. So we have 4 for the long course system and then 4 for the.
Correct.
That'll be great, because those always, ever since we built that facility, those have been a problem, so. I have some funny stories if you want to know.
I think it's like you have to put like a new sleeve and a new anchor and it's a whole.
So, wow, for
Fill in the
$4,000, that's great. That's a great price, so. Okay, my next question was, well, question and comment, I kind of understand this, but I want to understand it better, Dave, is on Field 3, will you explain what that $250,000 encompasses as far as redoing Field 3? I'm not even completely clear. Is that a complete scrape from the backstop all the way to the fence and then redoing that? What does that $250,000 estimate get us on replacing that Field 3?
Yeah, that's a good question. What that is, that estimated cost is a complete renovation of Field 3, which would include drainage improvements. In addition, it would also require new soil to be brought in, renovation of the irrigation system, removing and replacing the current infield skinned area, and then also and also providing new turf as well.
And that's being done because it just wasn't done the right way, or was there damage because of rain, or just damage through the years, or?
What we have encountered with that field, in particular in Vice Governor's Field, is one of our biggest problems there is the water table there is so high, and in wet years it could be 14 inches below ground, and we would hit water. And so when you have standing water and the field becomes saturated, you don't have the oxygen in the soil that the plant needs to grow, recuperate, and thrive. And it's kind of in an area as well that everything drains kind of towards that direction anyways, towards Field 3. So typically we have a lot of standing water there. And so drainage is a big issue there. And then also just the current irrigation system and the layout of the irrigation sprinkler heads there also needs to be improved as well, the spacing mainly. And so it's just a field that was compounded with, deficiencies, one deficiency after another. And we attempted to provide some solutions, but those were only temporary. And now we're at the point where we truly need to start over with it and redo the entire field.
Got it. One question, being very familiar with Governor's Field and so forth, and the sports complex out there, are we looking to remove water and put it somewhere else, or are we looking to dig down and have that water drain down? Now, you said the water table was high there, so are we trying to get rid of it over to the ditch on the north side? Is that what we're trying to do?
Yeah, and also the way that field it almost sits in a bowl, so everything drains. Right now, it drains towards from home plate out to like the outfield, and then it kind of sits there in the outfield area. So by also renovating and redoing the field, we can also now regrade it so we can have the water move off the field and move in a direction that we wanted to. And we'd probably get the water to move towards the right field corner and out kind of that way. So
Got it,
yes,
got it.
eventually that would get to the asphalt parking lot and driveway, which would then go into the
Surface.
DIs. Yeah. So
Surface,
we
okay.
would try to do like surface draining, but I think we're also looking at some underground like drainage as well because the water table is so high. So capturing that water and also trying like to move that
Okay.
as well.
Thank you very much for that explanation. So.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And the last question I had is, as far as RTC, do we usually have RTC presented like this? I mean, that's money that we already have. Is that correct? Are we asking the board of supervisors that we can spend it that way? Will you explain to me how that exactly works? And do we have that $550,000 in the RCT fund?
So for residential construction tax, we do have, I think, what was the dollar amount? I want to say it's probably about 433,000 now, plus the 165 for the tennis courts at Roscoe Park, which has already been authorized by the Board of Supervisors. So as part of the budget process, even though the residential construction tax money is in the bank, if you will,
Okay.
we do have to get the projects approved by the board.
Got it.
So it has to be part of the budget process. We can go out of the budget process. So let's say we get a big influx of RCT, we have an approved list, maybe from the Park Commission or from the staff, and we could get approval mid-year if we need to.
Okay. I think that's just the way I remember it being done. I just wanted to clear that
They
up,
like
so.
it if we can, just bring it all at one time so we don't piecemeal stuff. But
Got it. Thank you very much.
so if we know a project, we try to bring it.
Well, you guys, thank you very much for that presentation. And with that, wanting to move on, does anybody else have any questions on item 9? And if not, do we want to let these guys proceed to the board of supervisors with any kind of a recommendation? I think we need a motion. Does anybody have a motion? Okay, thank you. Yeah.
There we go. I move that we approve the presentation by Director Budge as presented to us, and that we allow her, or we ask her to take it forward to the Board of Supervisors for their approval on our behalf. Does that pretty much encompass it, do you think? Jen, do you need something else?
Could we amend your motion perhaps to include the priorities identified in attachment F?
Absolutely. Do I need to remake the motion, or can we just take it as it's amended?
Why don't we try again?
All right. I move that the Carson City Parks and Recreation Commission approve Director Budge's presentation that she made to us tonight, and that we authorize her to present it to the Board of Supervisors on our behalf with emphasis on Exhibit F as a priority. Would that do it? Okay?
Yep.
That's my motion.
Thank you very much. That's a wonderful motion. Do I have a second?
In a moment. I second that.
Okay, we got a second. We also have a third, so. Any discussion on that? Okay.
Yeah,
So,
and I just have a quick question that might be a discussion question. Since it's going to the board and I'm on the board, I don't know if I'm the person to second it or if that should be someone else.
yeah, I believe that you're just fine doing that.
Okay. So
You're
I
okay,
second
but-
it then.
Precedence. And besides, we had a third out there, so
There you go.
it'll
Thank
cover
you,
you.
third.
On the line if you have a question for the DA.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay, so all in favor of motion?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward. Thank you.
Thanks so much with your patience on that. I know it's a lot of information.
Okay, moving forward for discussion, staff updates, discussion only. Jennifer, that's on you.
Okay, well, we have, thank you, Mr. Chair, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. A lot of exciting updates to tell you about. We did hire another range coordinator. His name's Paul Joseph. He is a former police officer in Arizona. We're so excited to have him. He relocated here. He's already doing a great job. He has been helping the staff do all the snow removal and a lot of other duties as required, and he's just been amazing. So we're happy to have him. Our park ranger, John Costello, was promoted to senior park ranger, which was a new position that was created the last budget year. So the park rangers have the ability to move up and have some succession planning and have promotion opportunities. So that leaves a park ranger vacancy that's currently open that we're recruiting for. We also have a recreation coordinator here at the theater, a full-time position open and available if anyone's interested in applying. The senior natural resource specialist position, I think just closed, so we're working on filling that. That's Lindsay Boyer's old position. She was promoted to open space manager, so we're trying to fill that. And then we have 2 vacancies for park maintenance worker right now. And there's a handful of seasonal positions, I think, available. I know with COVID, we have very limited staffing right now, so there's not a ton of opportunities. We're very hopeful for the summer, and hopefully we can have more seasonal opportunities available. Any questions on the positions before I move forward?
How do we post for those? Is that all up to HR? Do we use a company to go find people or?
It depends on the position. So HR does post everything. It goes on Indeed. It goes on some of the government job. I think it's like governmentjobs.com, and there's some other websites. And then position specific, like, for example, a recreation coordinator position, we might advertise through the National Parks and Recreation Association or California Recreation and Park Society. A lot of them are word of mouth, like in the theater community. I know Eric's tried to reach out for someone specific like that. We can put it on the Nevada Recreation and Park Society site. I think with the natural resource specialist, Lindsay put it out with the Rangeland Management Society and a few other specialty items. So we try to go by position and target advertise for those.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions for Jennifer?
Oh, I have more to present, but
I
for
apologize.
positions, if
For-
there's any
okay.
questions, if that's okay.
Forward, ho.
Sorry.
No
I
sorries
know, there's a
necessary.
lot tonight. And then our favorite topic, COVID. I just wanted you to know that our department's really committed to helping the health department. I think it's got to be the most difficult place to work right now. They're really committed to trying to make sure that people have opportunities for vaccines and are being safe and trying to educate people. So with that vein, we've got 6 of our staff every other week are volunteering the drive-through COVID testing, and we're trying to help out. Dan and I are 2 of those people. It's been a lot of fun, but it's also, really like a sobering exercise to see how many people are going through and getting tested every week. We've also provided space for the COVID hotline in one of the parks buildings over at the corporate yard over in Building 7. And that's going to be there for the foreseeable future. I mean, probably at least the next year. But we're happy to help provide that space where we could. And then we've also provided one of our recreation staff to work for health department. So they're working our digital alerting program and working for the health department as well. So just trying to help pitch in where we can. The city is still in the red zone. And with that, we are still only up to 10 people for activities right now. So no tournaments, no special events. We have had a handful of, well, I would even say less than a handful of things that have been approved through business and industry. One is a trail running series, which is a great activity right now for COVID. Anything outside and recreating is great. So we're hoping things lighten up as we move forward and we can do more, but like dance, snowshoeing trips and things like that, we're still limited to 10 people. A lot of our park rangers are doing programs, but it's 10 people. Let's see, some late material that you have. Let's start with the Fuji Park Master Plan. I gave you guys all a hard copy, looks like this. And then for those of you at home, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I just want to let you know that these are very draft concepts. I do want to thank the Redevelopment Citizens Committee for allocating the funds for us to be able to hire a consultant for this project, which has been great. It's been really difficult having a planning process with COVID. We can't have workshops and we have to kind of think out of the box. We did have more than 400 people fill out a survey, which helped guided this. Nick Wentworth is heading up this project. He's our park project manager. He's been working with all the stakeholders, Cooperative Extension, the dog agility groups, a lot of the special events that come to Fuji Park to try to figure out, what their needs are and then come up with options for the future. So I realize you just got these today. I don't expect you to provide any feedback tonight, but I wanted you to have these two concepts. There's an A and a B. There's just a few differences between the two. Really just try to take some time, absorb that information. And then I sent you an email today on where to send your comments. So any feedback over the next month, if we could get just your comments by the 26th. If you know of people that are active users of Fuji Park, please share this with them. Nick's going to be meeting over the next month with the stakeholders to kind of further refine these drawings and make sure that they meet everyone's needs. We'll meet with the Culture and Tourism Authority and all of the special interest groups that use Fuji Park and further refine these into one concept, and we'll bring it back to the Park Commission for review, comment, and then hopefully recommendation to the Board of Supervisors at your next meeting. So hopefully in April, we'll be able to show you one drawing. But this is just a little taste of what we might be able to do there. If you, there's descriptions for each item. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to Nick or myself. In the email you received today, it has Nick's email. So you can contact him anytime with any questions or feedback or ideas or suggestions we might not have considered. Any questions on Fuji Park late material? And then I have a couple more things.
Any questions on Fuji Park? Okay. Oh, okay.
Oh, you got
Go
a
ahead,
couple.
Liam.
But I wanted to backtrack to the COVID. You were stating that we're in the red zone, so our participation is limited to the number of people who can attend. Maybe at a future meeting, you could provide us with an idea of how much that's impacted the budget and how much revenue we have potentially lost because of that. I think that would be interesting, and how it's going to affect our future budget as we go forward.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
And you know what? I answered my question. So thank you.
Great. So some other late material that you got was on Kings Canyon Trailhead. We just got this. It's the 95% plans and an overview. And I did just want to let the public know that we're still gathering feedback on that project. We weren't able to get the material in time to be able to really fully agendize that item, but it is going to be discussed at the RTC meeting on February 10th. I provided in an email for you an overview of kind of what the plans addressed and the comments received. We got that update from Chris Martinovich at Public Works, which has been a great overview. So please take some time, look through those plans. If you have any questions, feel free to contact the staff. Greg Bergeron or Lindsay Boyer are great contacts for that project in particular. We can also put you in touch with Public Works if you have a technical question. But we will be discussing it at that RTC meeting in a public setting. And I know, Kurt, you've been following that one really closely, so.
Yes, and sharing with my friends.
Good, thank you. And then just a couple other items. You have your Board of Supervisors action items in your packet. If you have any questions, let me know. I did want to update you on our federal lands bill. Unfortunately, it is now dead. So we will have to revisit the lands bill at another time. The staff has actually come up with some other items that we would have liked to include that weren't really aware of at the time. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise so we can get it right next time. But unfortunately, that is no longer moving forward. So sorry, I don't have better news on that one. I know you guys all provided a lot of great feedback on that federal lands bill. But we'll try again. And I think we just need some patience and we'll revisit it. But we'll have Leah help us get that through Congress next time, since we have our resident lobbyist on the Parks Commission. So that is, I know that was a lot. So any questions on my report?
I have a comment. Hello? I have a comment.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, my microphone is not working very well.
Thank you, Chairman. Dave Whitefield. Just a comment on the Kings Canyon project. Since that's kind of in my neighborhood, we drive up there occasionally and had occasion to do that. Actually, yesterday, I think it was, and or day before. And I didn't do an exact count, but I think there were at least 15 cars, maybe more, were parked all over the place. It seems that it is a popular sledding place. Took a few videos of the kids coming down. It looked a little dangerous to me. I certainly wouldn't have done it, but I saw a couple of kids crash into some trees that looked kind of nasty. But I just want to say I think this is a great project, and I know it's been controversial with the local homeowners there, but I've got to believe that this is going to be a huge improvement for that area because at least people will have a decent place to park, and it won't be on the side of the road. And to me, it's going to be a much safer environment for everybody. And hopefully, we've got most of the homeowners' issues addressed. So that's my comment.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more comments? Questions? Okay, well, seeing none, we're going to move forward to member announcements. Is there any members out there of the commission that want to talk about anything in their bailiwick? Commissioner Keever?
I've discussed this with Jen already. As you may know, now it went off. Anyway, we had a medical emergency at Sonoma a couple weeks ago, and the regulars were great. They sprang into action. 2 of them were doing CPR mouth to mouth. Yeah, we know it's old school, but another was doing the timing. Others were controlling the dogs to keep them out of the way. Others were waiting to wave the paramedics in. I just want to give a nod of acknowledgement to everybody who stepped in to help the lady who was in distress. And I've discussed with Jen, if we can find out who those individuals are, maybe we can acknowledge them publicly. So.
I have no problem with that. Jen, do we have a policy as far as that goes, or?
So we've had, since I've been here, we've had sort of one example. We had some very heroic efforts to save someone at the MAC, actually multiple times. And then we worked with the fire chief to do an accommodation at a Board of Supervisors meeting. So if we can definitely identify those individuals, I can work with the fire chief to sort of follow suit because they already have sort of a manner to be able to acknowledge those local heroes.
Yes.
You just have to hold it down for maybe 2 or 3 seconds and then lift it up.
So it's holding it down, it's not pushing it?
It's, yeah, holding it down, I think.
Okay. I would ask anybody
quote
who
me.
is watching this meeting tonight if they know the names of all the individuals, or even one of them, if they could contact either myself or Jen. We have at least the name of one lady who was doing CPR, and she was doing it with a baby strapped to her chest. She said there was no time to remove the baby. And I watched. I was across the park, but just seeing these people, it was like a well-oiled machine. And though the lady did not survive, her family was grateful. She said their efforts gave them time to get to this state to say goodbye to their mom. And it left them with a warm feeling about the people of Carson. So if anybody knows who the other individuals were, if they wouldn't mind letting us know so we could acknowledge their efforts. Because the thing that struck me was they all jumped in to do CPR. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Not one of them mentioned that they were worried about getting COVID or anything. Their concern was on the individual who was in distress.
What time was this approximately?
It was about 4:30 in the afternoon on a Friday.
Okay.
So it was just to watch everybody just work together. It was amazing. And the park regulars are strongly urging, they're trying to find out who these other individuals were. And if they could, they would like a big recognition party. They think that these individuals deserve lots of recognition. And because I'm on the commission, they've you take care of it for us.
So can we work with the fire department? Is there witness reports that are filled out when something like this happens? Do you know about that, Jen?
Yeah, unfortunately, since it's a medical incident, HIPAA regulations, we can't get any information off of those reports. So it's difficult. So we really need to kind of, as a community, just find out, who those heroes were. Leanne's like a great detective, though, I'll tell you, and she already sent me one. And I know she's on a mission to figure that out, but we can definitely work with the fire chief. He's amazing about doing stuff like that and make sure people get acknowledged if they want to. Some people don't want that acknowledgement. So
Okay,
we
great.
respect that.
So it sounds like this has some legs.
It might, yeah.
Right on. Does anybody else on the commission have any thing that they would like to report?
I have a question. This is Janice Caldwell.
Go ahead, Janice.
Since the legislature is in town, hi. I'm wondering, do we have a liaison with the legislature? And I'm thinking particularly about all the building of apartments and homes and stuff going on around here. Can't we get some kind of piece of the action out of all that?
Jennifer, would you like to cover that?
Sure, Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. As far as new apartments being built, we are getting residential construction tax from those constructed apartments, which is great. As far as your legislative liaison, that would be me. Leah Cartwright, who's on our commission, is also a lobbyist by trade, but that would have to be on her own time. She can't lobby on behalf of the commission. And we do have a process. I am part of a team on the city that is definitely reviewing legislative bills that are already coming forward. You've reviewed at least a dozen already. So we are actively working on that. If there's certain items that you want updates on, I'm happy to provide those updates for you and provide feedback. I'll include that in my director's report next time a legislative update. And I can let you know, I can give you some examples of some of the bills that I've already reviewed are on noxious and invasive weeds, pesticide use, wildland, defensible space. There's a wildlife item. There's, a lot of stuff related to our natural areas. And then also minimum wage and prevailing wage are some other items as well. So prevailing wage, for those of you that don't know, is anything over $100,000 that's constructed that the city contracts out. We have to pay prevailing wages, which is a higher wage rate for those labor forces. So it essentially costs the city more money to be able to construct something. It used to be $250,000. That's one of the items we're following. Federally, they're looking at raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Locally, at the last legislative session, they did vote to, is it $12 an hour, Dan? $12.50, I think, is what it went to. And we're on a path every year to try to catch up to that amount by a certain year. So those are items, I love to pay people more money, but where do we get the money from? So they're difficult decisions that we have to make. But I'll include a legislative update in my next director's report. And if there's certain items that you would like me to help monitor or report back to you, just send me an email or give me a call, and I'll look at those items.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah,
This is
Who said yeah?
I did. Dave Whitefield.
Okay, Dave. Dave, and then I heard you, Stacy. So
Thank you.
Dave, Stacy, you'll be next.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. I know you'd all be disappointed if we didn't hear anything about pickleball, so I have a couple of items. We have created another player, local player, Dana Stoltz, has created a Facebook page called Mills Park Pickleball. And if you're on Facebook, you might just search for that and check out the page. We've got some pictures. We've had a pretty active season with the good weather. A lot of people have been playing at Mills Park. On the good days, we've had as many as 7 or 8, all 8 courts full. And some of the players have been out this week shoveling snow off the courts, so they're anticipating more good weather and going to do that. We also have a COVID restrictions permitting. We have a pretty exciting event planned for May 7th through 9th. A group of top professionals out of Pennsylvania have a camp called Level Up Pickleball Camp, and they bring a contingent of pros, and they're going to rent the courts plan to rent the courts for 3 days, 7th through 9th of May, and hopefully have 32 participants getting coaching from these pros. So that's a pretty exciting thing, and Dan Arp is working on getting the courts into the reservation system so that can happen. And Dan, I just had today a request from one of the Truckee Meadows Pickleball Club, the event coordinator, wanted to know when they could be able to reserve courts and what the costs were. So you may be getting another request from that area. Anyway, I'm very excited and happy that the courts are being used and that we're making good use of that facility. And again, very appreciative of your indulgences on the commission and Jennifer and her staff's support for moving that project forward. I think so far it looks like it's been a real good success. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Stacy, you had some comments? Commissioner Wilkie?
real quick updates from the school district. We did start going from pre-K to 6th grade, 4 days a week. We still have Mondays for professional development for our teachers and getting ready for the school year. We also got approved by the Planning Commission with our special use permit to start construction of our expansion on Eagle Valley Middle School, which we're really hoping with the plan that our traffic people came up with, that you'll start to see a decrease, a little bit easier traffic pattern there during drop off and pickup. And then I know there's a couple of us that are Carson High grads, and I wanted to let you know about a special project that our librarian at the high school, librarian Campbell, Mrs. Campbell's doing. It's called The Story of Carson High along, forget who the other lady is, Pat Davis. They're working on digitizing all the yearbooks throughout since the start of Carson High and school newspapers. And they started with a donation from the Rotary Club and are looking for other donations to help them do that. But that way, all that history will be covered and be able to be seen by our kids and our grandkids. So I just wanted to let people know that that was available. And we also wanted to thank the community center staff. We've been able to meet in person for the last couple months, first in the the theater and now in the Bob Kroll room. And we want to thank them for their care and their special attention to the rooms and safety issues that they did with us. And we appreciated all the hard work that happened to make those meetings possible.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilkie. Does anybody else have anything to talk about? Okay, great. Do we have somebody here from the Foundation of Carson City Parks and Recreation? Was that Lori?
Yeah, I think Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director, I think now that we don't have anyone from the foundation on the board, perhaps they can take that off the agenda, and then if they have updates, we'll just include them in my director's report as we move forward, if that works for everybody,
That works for me.
unless someone wants to join the Parks Foundation.
I was on the hook for a while, but I never got a phone call.
Oh, I'll have them call you.
She told me she was
Kurt
going to
just
call.
volunteered. Everybody heard it.
I did like 4 months ago.
Really?
So anyway, moving on. So, so any future agenda items that commission might want to talk about? We had a couple, Jennifer. We had one about the legislative report and what's coming down the pike that way. Is there any other ones that the commission would like to see?
Budget, the red zone.
I haven't figured, maybe I have to show
There we
my-
go. We were gonna, that item I requested on the budget now versus then and how COVID has affected our participation and our revenue that way. And in the future, we were also gonna have a presentation on playground liability.
Also, we'll need to continue our discussion on dog use in parks. So we're prepared as this board to have the joint meeting in June, where we'll really have a robust discussion with the Open Space Advisory Committee and trying to get some uniform policies that we can move forward. Because right now, it's all over the place. You guys all saw that great presentation that John Costello provided us and all the feedback. But I'd really like us to have some good recommendations moving forward. So I think if we can, at that next meeting, continue that discussion, that would be great if it's okay to you.
That sounds great. So do we have any public comment out there?
I see no public comment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So with that, do I have a motion for adjournment? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.